So on this Transformer Thursday, we have two big reveals today. It looks like our Walmart CollectorCon items and pre-orders may have leaked out early, and we get our first look a week early from Walmart CollectorCon of some retro G1 decos and carded-inspired figures from the Transformers Retro Deluxe line. We have Retro Deluxe, Wheelie, and Outback to talk about today, and they are looking fantastic. We had no idea these two were coming, so this is really cool stuff. One is a brand new debut tooling from the ground up, much like what we saw with Sea Spray, and one is a partial from the G1 Brawn that we had before. Let's jump into it like we always do here on the Transformer Slag podcast and make sense of it and decide, should we get these, should we not get these, what's going on with them in the coloring. Let's start with Wheelie first and the stats that they have here, because we have the listing that also leaked out. 4.5 inches, slightly smaller than normal Deluxes. Again, it's Wheelie, so even though he's a mini bot like all the other mini bots, he is much more smaller than some of the other mini bots. So he's 4.5 inches as opposed to the normal 5-inch that a lot of our Deluxes have been up to this point. They mention here G1 inspired packaging, Cybertronian car that he transforms into, and 23 steps to transform with a vintage-inspired slingshot accessory. So the toy itself sporting a very G1 1986 color scheme, based off of the toy more so than the animation model as expected with what is the, intent of this line. Of course, the orange face, the way the body deco is really cements that in. I'm 100% convinced that the head sculpt that is used on this one here is a toy version used exclusively for this retro release. I could tell by that because it might look weird to people, but if you look carefully, it has this small overhead brim visor on the head sculpt that is made to emulate the way that the canopy of the car kind of also made the visor of the original G1 1986 toy. It's very muted, doesn't really convey it very well, but you see what they're trying to do there. And they made a small version of it probably just so it could fit for the transformation when they have to tuck it away. So that's what I think is going on here. And I'm 100% convinced we're going to get a much more animation-inspired head sculpt later on. If you're not feeling this one. Even me, I'm not really feeling it too much. So, if you wait a little bit, we'll 100% get something that, is probably going to take the budget from his chest and then put it into the lower half of the body to make that more screen accurate, give him a gray face instead of the orange face like this. I think that's what's probably going to happen ultimately in the end. But this, again, going for a very toy-inspired kind of look. And Wheelie never really topped a lot of people's favorite G1 toys, so that also probably doesn't help him too much. His iconic slingshot that was featured in animation and not the toy at all is also included. It looks like the slingshot could also be stored in his undercarriage to kind of make a undercarriage gun turret kind of thing for car mode. Sure, why not? Got to do something with that storage and add a little play value there. It looks pretty good, I'll be honest, but I think I'm going to wait for a redeco, in all honesty. I think the second run of this tooling is going to be much better and much more what we want out of him, which is a really cool articulated Wheelie figure to put on your stuff. I mean, that's the way I see it. This one here just, I get what they're trying to do, but it doesn't really do it for me in a lot of ways. And the head sculpt, I see what they're trying to do. It would have been cooler if the head sculpt could go, in the chest and you could have the visor, the cockpit opened up and do something that's really toy accurate. But unfortunately, that is the case. Aside from that, maybe we'll get some other repaints from this afterwards because we already have the second repaint that'll definitely be more screen accurate. But maybe we'll even get some unique toy colors, maybe even dye-on. Let's go for a weird deep cut there. Get a dye-on repaint from this specific toy head sculpt. Pair it off with a Studio Series Deluxe Class Cup as Orion packs. Repaint a War for Cybertron Siege Battlemaster Fire Drive as Barrel Roll. Make it a PulseCon exclusive, and we are in business, baby. eHobby is back. Yeah, that's a big get. But either way, that's what I think. Definitely one that, for most people, I think we should wait unless you really, really want to have that toy-accurate Wheelie. Next up, we have the Retro Deluxe Class Outback. Here's the stats on this one. So he's 5 inches tall, unlike the 4.5 for the Wheelie. Converts into his Outback truck mode, 23 steps to transform. His blaster accessory, which we'll get into that in a moment. So, yeah, man, now this guy, is one of those figures that, unlike Wheelie, might be a one and done. And I have a few reasons for that. Now, right away you look at it and it's very much leaning into the animation model. This isn't something trying to be the toy version. It's not lacking the paint in that areas or adding in the paint in the other areas. This is very much the animation model of Outback just as a toy. And I think it's a lot like what we got with Sea Spray. Sea Spray is one of those things. You look at the Sea Spray retro reissue, the retro card back one, and you kind of go like, well, what do you do with this to make it more screen accurate? There's not much really you could do outside of little paint decos and stuff that maybe a Japanese version might do. But in terms of like a second release of Outback, or in the case of Sea Spray, as a standalone item that needs to exist, not really. I think that you're pretty good with what you're going to have here with this Outback, and you're pretty good what you're going to have with Sea Spray, and it's really just kind of minor stuff at the end. Because you have already the colored in visor, that if they didn't color it in, it was just a gray visor like the original toy, then you would have the argument, okay, they could do a colored in blue visor later and make it screen accurate. But they did that from the outgo, not the Outback, pun intended. He comes with his weapon, which again, that's actually toy accurate, because fun fact, Outback was the first mini bot to ever come with his own actual weapon, and that's pretty cool about him and what gave him so many brownie points with me as a kid and why I liked them so much. But so he comes with his weapon. The deco on him, again, it's much more screen accurate, although I find it interesting that both the original toy and the animation model is lacking his crotch detail and paint deco there, so that's funny that that's not there. I don't know, maybe that'll be used for a future repaint. Who knows? But I really doubt it. But again, the tooling is great. It's quite an extensive retool from that Studio Series 86 Brawn, and I love it for that. I have a slight bias for Outback because he was one of the few mini bots I got back in the day, and he kind of was like my Brawn stand-in until I got Brawn proper all those years later. And then I learned to actually love that figure because, hey, he had his own weapon and he had actual hands instead of claw hands like Brawn did, even though I love Brawn too. I love mini bots. So I'm pretty sure, like I said, this guy's probably a one and done. Because I look at it and I go, there's nothing really you could repaint it into. And I don't think they need to do a repaint, because when you look at what it is, it comes from the Brawn mold. And that mold already is like, now with this one, we're up to like, 4 now? So I think they're pretty good with it. I don't think they have to do anything else. So they just figured, let's go all out, do a final version of Outback, and we don't have to do something later on. Where something like the Wheelie, it's clear that this isn't the end of that story. There's still plenty more to go with this brand new tooling. If they want to do a 5th repaint, we could dig up my old concept from GoBot Vanguard, from back in the day that I worked on third party. It's a very easy repaint. You get a GoBot out of that and use the Brawn mold. You're welcome to use that, Hasbro. Either way, anyways. That's it, more or less. That's what I think. It's great stuff. I'm down with the Outback, the Wheelie. I think I'm going to wait on that one. Great stuff. No doubt this is going to be $24.97 Walmart price point for their retro deluxes that we've had up to this point. No doubt the pre-order is going to be next week, exactly on October 9th, 2025 for the Walmart Collector Con. And again, no doubt this will probably be also on display at New York Comic Con that same weekend, October 10th and the 11th at the Hasbro Pulse booth. Very, very cool stuff. Excited about, especially the Outback. Very, very cool. Dig it. Love these retro reissues that we've gotten of all these, retro packaging, mini bots and stuff. Super cool stuff. Great reveals. Again, awesome. Transformer Thursday. Didn't expect it this early, but I'm down for that. Thanks again for listening to the Transformer Slag podcast and keeping you educated, entertained, and informed on everything going on in our beautiful Transformer world. Thanks again for being a subscriber, a lover, a listener, and everything like that. And I'll talk to you in the near future.